You may have noticed that in my Oppo Find N5 tips and tricks video, I did not actually mention anything about the camera or about the Photos application. That is because I was saving that for its own independent video, and that is this video. So I'm going to show you how to get the most out of your camera and your photo editing on your Oppo Find N5. And we're going to start off inside the Photos application because there are actually a few pretty interesting things in here. So the first thing I would suggest that you do, if you use Google Photos to back up your photos in the cloud, go into your settings right here, click on settings obviously, and then you'll see an option, back up to Google Photos. If you click on this and you go through this process, what will happen is all of your photos from Google Photos will now appear inside the stock Photos app. I've said the word photos so many times it has lost all meaning. That's very, very convenient though. From there, let's jump into an actual image and I'll show you a couple more things. Very, very awkward photo of Rose. If you long press, touch and hold on a subject in a photo, what should happen is that right there. And you can now save that to the file doc, or you can release it to save it as a sticker, copy it, share it, save it as an image with no background, whatever you want to do. Let's say I took a photo like this and I wanted to cut out that background to make a different looking image. There you go. There's that. Let's go ahead and save it. And now what I should have is this without all of the stuff in the background. I can make my own background, do whatever I want to do with it. Again, this is going to be useful for certain people, but for me, it's pretty cool. And what's really cool is whenever I delete these photos, it deletes them off of Google Photos as well. It's all just synced together. Really, really good stuff. Let's go back to this image and click on our little pin up here in the corner to go into edit. There are several very, very simple, basic, obvious things that you're probably used to seeing. You can mark up, draw and write on things, add text, watermark, you can pixelate things. Retouch is interesting. If there is a face in the image, it can potentially, whiten your teeth, make your eyes look different, and, draw in your chin and all of these things like that. But what I want to talk about are the AI editing tools up here at the very top. There are some pretty cool things here. So let's do first AI erase. Smart lasso, paint over, remove people, all of these things do basically exactly what you would imagine. But if we use the smart lasso and I'm just going to circle Rose, it should snap onto her outline and it should begin immediately processing this, removing her from the image, and there is your end result. That is a very, very convincing result, and it happened very fast. If we take this super zoomed in photo of a tree sparrow and we use the AI Enhance Clarity option, it's going to again use AI to basically try and upscale this image to fill in some details. We'll see how well this works sort of in real time. I've seen it be anywhere from I can barely tell that anything happened all the way up to, hey, that's a pretty impressive difference. I think this is looking like somewhere in between those two. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see, yeah, it's definitely made it a little bit sharper and it has increased the resolution. It's not magic. It's not going to take a crazy blurry photo and make it look, exceptionally good, but it's certainly worth a look if you have a low resolution image. Inside the Photos application, you can also just activate Google Lens. It's right there. It's going to quickly scan the image and try to give an answer for what it's looking at. You also have this cool little dual panel option. If you click on it, it's going to quickly split screen these two things so that you can be scrolling through here and looking at two different images side by side if you need to do a comparison or something like that. Okay, if we jump into the camera app itself, there are quite a few things to go over. Obviously, right here, you're going to have your selection of lenses. You should be able to see my cursor now going around those lenses, 0.6, 1, 2, 3, and then obviously 6. You've also got an option right here for Google Lens as well. Quickly jump into Lens to scan things, translate, do different visual searches. You also have this option right here, which if you click on it, it enables and disables the live photo option. Maybe you've seen this before in your gallery where you've taken a picture and when you're looking at the image, it's playing as like a little looping GIF. That's what that is enabling and disabling. EV is going to change your exposure value. Let me show you that really quickly. So if I'm pointing the camera behind myself here and I turn this on, you can basically just boost or lower the exposure to try and compensate for what the image is going to look like. This camera does have a tendency to overly brighten things, so maybe you just kind of drag the exposure down just a little bit before you take your shot, and then you have a shot that maybe looks a little bit more natural compared to what it's going to generate on its own. And of course, this button controls flash. I tend to leave flash off all the time unless there's a very specific circumstance, but you can do what you need to do there. We have a few more kind of interesting options up here at the top though. So this first one goes into sort of a dual panel mode. And what this is going to do, if I do this again and I take a photo, you will now see the photo you just took on the other side of the screen. I think this is quite cool. Reminds me of Surface Duo, and that's a good thing. But we have some other options as well. So this one here is going to turn on dual preview. So now, not only do you see the preview of what you're going to be shooting here, you're also going to see it on the cover display as well. So if I'm photographing you, you can see what I'm about to take the photo of. And then the last image is going to probably freak out my capture, but basically what's happening is now I can control the camera from the cover display, but I'm still using the primary camera. So the idea is you point it at yourself and you can take a selfie with your high-end cameras instead of your selfie cameras. I skipped over the little hamburger menu here, so if we click on that, there's a bunch of stuff here as well. You might want to look into sort of what shape your photos are going to be, what aspect ratio they're going to be. I tend to shoot in 4:3, but you can do 16:9 like the standard wide angle. There's also 11:10, which is basically the full size, the full shape of the inner screen, and then you have 1:1. 4:3 is probably your best option. Your timer is there. Action mode is cool. The photos won't look as good, but they will capture movement better in focus. Auto HDR, you should probably just leave that turned on. Macro mode, we're going to come back to here in just a second. You also have interval shooting. Take photos at a selected interval until a specified number of shots have been taken. So if you turn this on, it's going to take 5 shots at a 3-second interval. This could also be fairly useful as well. All right, macro mode. So let's look at this in another way. So if I leave this setting, and instead I just point my phone at something. You see this little flower icon down here, and there's a slash through it. If I turn this back on, it's going to switch to an automatic macro mode, okay? And this is what this is going to look like. Actually, let's do that little dual panel thing so that you can see the preview of what I just took immediately. That is using the very low quality ultra wide camera. It's an 8 megapixel ultra wide. It's not good. Here's what you should do instead. Turn that off. And when you need to do a macro shot, click on the hamburger menu and turn on macro shot. Now you are using the 3x telephoto to do macro. It actually switches it into a very close focus mode. And now you can get very close. And when you take that photo, it is such a higher quality photo. You can look how just absolutely destroyed the case is on this Z Flip. My goodness, it has seen some use. I think those fibers are like almost embedded in it from being in a pocket. That's kind of crazy. Look at the quality difference. I mean, it's absolutely night and day. I've talked about this in some other videos. You need to use that as your macro mode. Don't use the automatic one. It's terrible. You're going to get so much better bokeh. You're going to be able to get in so much closer without your phone even needing to be that close. It's a really fantastic macro mode, and that's how you do it. Down here at the bottom, several options. If you click on photo, you have some smart scenes where it's going to try to kind of optimize the photo based on the scene, but you have these other things as well. So master is sort of like the entry into your pro mode, where you can change the ISO, you can change the exposure, you can change if it's autofocus or manual focus, you can change all sorts of different things. Now, the big thing about master mode is that when you use it, it appears as though the post effect, the processing of the image is basically turned off. And the result of that will be this. This was the shot taken in pro mode, and you can see how it is really not handling this bright light very well at all. In automatic mode, it does a much better job. So use master mode / pro mode if you know what you're doing, but just be aware that the processing is basically just not gonna happen. In some ways, I like that. In some ways, I think this is a better looking shot. But again, you have to be taking shots of the right thing for it to really make sense. Unless, of course, you're willing to sit there and really dial all of these different settings in. All of these different things do then need to be dialed in. If we jump over to video, right here I'm just setting mine is set to 4K 30. Make sure that you're at least set to 4K 30. Don't be shooting at 1080p in the year 2025. You probably don't need 60 FPS. I think 4K 30 is a nice balance, so that's something to definitely check. In this little menu, ultra steady is going to make the video look very steady, but it is going to reduce the quality a little bit. Sound focus is kind of cool. Enhance the sound of the main subject and reduce background noise. It might sound a little bit artificial, but in certain scenarios might be very useful. I love focus lock. So you're filming and you tap to focus on something, but that thing is moving. The focus will follow that thing. Really, really good stuff. And then one more pretty cool thing, this little icon down here, this little F, what you do if you click on this is you can now simulate a portrait mode in video. You can change the quote unquote aperture in real time of your video. I'll see if I can demonstrate this for you here. So now it's set to 16, and as I scroll this forward, the background will blur out more and more, but you can see there's a little bit of like fringing on the edges of my hand, okay? It's gonna work better on something like a person than it is on a hand, but like I said, it's just basically simulating a portrait mode, a camera with a larger aperture, but it does restrict you to 1080p 30 FPS, so definitely keep that in mind. All right, let's jump into settings. Composition assistance. I like to have the level turned on, and I like to have a grid turned on. It just helps you compose your shots. So make sure the stuff is turned on if you want it. If you don't like that shutter sound, you can turn it off here. If you keep your slider, your alert slider set to vibrate or silence, it's gone either way. Here's a really cool one, preserve settings. Let's say there is a setting that every time you open the camera, you're immediately going directly to. You can tell it to preserve that. So shooting mode, start camera in the shooting mode last time, for example, portrait. But you can see, you can do almost everything, even that exposure setting. Like for me, it tends to be that this camera overexposes things a little bit. So if I go back over here to photo and I go to EV, and let's say I'm going to drop it down like 0.3. Next time I open up the camera app, it's going to be at 0.3. Touch and hold shutter button, clear burst versus classic burst. So basically, if you hold that shutter button, it's going to be taking a burst of photos, captures more photos, but they may be blurry, captures sharp photos, moving objects with rich details. You can kind of have your choice there. Or you can also change this to be recording a video. So if you hold down the shutter, it starts filming a video instead. I like having the burst mode, try to take shots of lightning and things like that, which I haven't actually had an opportunity to do yet, but I plan on it. Right in here, you can actually change it so that just anywhere on the screen is your shutter button. I leave that turned off, but show palm is useful. So if you're taking a selfie, camera's on a tripod, you show it the palm, it scans it, and it does like a 3-second countdown to take a photo. That one's pretty useful. This is a pretty cool one too, quick launch. Most phones will let you double click the power button to launch the camera. For whatever reason, this doesn't really give you that option, but you can double click the volume buttons to launch the camera when your screen is off and audio isn't playing. I did briefly mention the lenses down here on the side of the screen, or if you're in normal phone mode, they'll be down here at the bottom. And you can click on these to zoom in, zoom out into the ultra wide. But if you click on any of these actually, and you hold, you press and hold, and then you start moving, there's this little radial dial which will let you zoom in even further. And if you get to 60x, what will happen is you will see this little AI icon pop up in the corner of the screen. Anything over 60x will trigger this. It's going to try to use AI to enhance the clarity of the image. Now, in my experience, most of the time, it doesn't look like anything happened at all. But occasionally, if it recognizes what it's looking at, it might try to enhance that image with varying levels of success. I'll show you a couple of images here that I included in a different video of my dog Rose. The before and the after looks definitely a lot clearer, but there are some weird things happening with her eyes. Again, AI is not perfect, so keep that in mind. If you zoom in all the way to 60x, one, man, that's going to be a rough looking picture more than likely, but two, it's probably going to try to use AI. So just be aware, it might look good, it might look bad. I do also want to show you that if you're using an extreme level of zoom, you'll see this preview up here in the corner. And what this is showing you is a broader view of what you're pointing the thing at. But in the orange square rectangle, that's going to be actually what you're zoomed into. So it's going to help you basically just frame your shot a bit more easily as I pan this around. Like I said, it just kind of gives you a broader view to know where you're trying to aim. If you scroll all the way over here to more, you do have several other options. Night is basically just going to take a longer exposure. It should sort of do something like that automatically, but this is a manual way to do this. High res is going to shoot photos without using pixel binning, so your 50 megapixel sensor, rather than outputting something that's around 12-ish megapixels, something like that, it'll be a 50 megapixel shot. It might not look as good in some ways, but you should be able to pinch to zoom in on it much, much further. So use this if you're photographing, still things with pretty even lighting, could come in handy. A lot of these are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to skip them. Movie mode is pretty cool. It is basically like a manual mode for video. That's pretty cool. I will probably never use it, but it's at least there as an option. This X pan mode is pretty cool. So it's basically trying to like give you something similar to the old Hasselblad X pan camera system. It's a very like cinematic, very wide look. That's kind of what you end up with, is a shot that looks like that. It basically just crops things in and does a little bit of tuning to the visuals overall. It's an interesting idea. And then dual view will allow you to film using your back camera and your front camera at the same time. Maybe you're like documenting something. That could be cool as well. And of course, if you click on this edit button in the top right-hand corner, you can rearrange these things, right? So you can actually bring, let's say you just absolutely love that night mode. Let's drag it down and you can put it on that bar at the bottom so it's easier to get to. One more thing that I'll show you this way, probably easier to do it. If you put this thing into laptop mode, the UI is going to change to fit this setup. So you can set the thing down and use it as its own tripod. Then that palm timer is going to come in handy. So there you go, guys. Those are my tips, how to get the most out of your Oppo Find N5 camera. If I left something out that you think would help people out, leave a comment down below. Feel free to let us know what it was. I certainly have missed something. There is so much to go over. I definitely have missed some things just by the nature of how complicated these camera systems are these days. So let me know in those comments down below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.